Where's the ad? Welcome to the fourth floor. What? Where's the ad?
You're right. You're right. Here we go. Here we go.
Miami's.
Alejandro, I'm like Pavlov's
Sorry,
dog.
my bad. I did soccer this morning. We don't have that ad.
You finally trained me to wait, so I wait, and look what happens. Welcome into the fourth floor, an extension of 5 on the floor on the 5 Reasons Sports YouTube channel. Our producer, Alejandro Villegas, we'll deal with him later. You can follow him at Alejandro VG32. We got Ricky J. Mark. You can follow at Ricky J. Mark, Brady Hawk at Brady Hawk 305, Greg Sylvander at Greg Sylvander. Make sure that you check out our sponsors if you're coming to the arena tonight. First, get on the road now, okay? It's busy down here, so get on the road now. And when you get here, 100 level, 300 level, check out Biscayne Bay Brew. There it is. There's a kiosk. It's empty now. It won't be empty when you get here, okay? Because it's always popular. Tropical Bay IPA and all the other great beers. Get them here at FTX Arena. Also at our sponsors like Quarterdeck. And not just our sponsors. We'd like Publix to be a sponsor. They're not, but you can get it there too. And Winn-Dixie and Whole Foods and a whole bunch of others. The official beer of the 5 Reasons Sports Network and of the Miami Marlins, who I think still exist. Also, we are sponsored by MarkBrownPA.com, MarcBrownPA.com, the man with the plan. Mark's going to be out here today with me, so you get to shake hands with a man. Also, he can help us develop an estate plan for you. He's got a title company right there in-house as well, so if you got real estate, you need a closing, he can handle that for you. Mention 5 Reasons. There's the phone number, 954-566-5678, 954-566-5678, MARC brownpa.com. All right, let's get to it. The Heat and the Sixers tonight. No James Harden, stunningly. There's Jonathan Ramlicon. He joined us. He was not at Hard Rock last night. James Harden was at Hard Rock last night. Now, I don't know if he went to Hard Rock and stayed out all night because he knew he wasn't going to play today, or if that's the reason he's not playing. But either way, he is not playing tonight, which means more Tyrese Maxey, more Joel Embiid, more Tobias Harris. They still have good players. Brady, let's go to you on this. Who's in, who's out?
Yeah, all the guys that were questionable, Jimmy Butler, Caleb Martin, Max Strus, PJ Tucker are all going to play, or they're warming up with the intention to play. So the key there, the only one is Kyle Lowry, who's still out. So Gabe Vincent, the Philadelphia 76ers killer, gets to stay in the starting lineup. And the key there is that Miami actually has a bench tonight. Like, we've been watching this Heat team the last couple nights without a bench fully, that tonight they're going to have Caleb, they have Max, they have Tyler, they have Dedmon, and they get back to their 9-man rotation. And also, this could probably be the last one before Victor kind of comes in to the picture. So it's kind of these last pushes for a lot of these guys to try to fully crack this rotation.
All right, you mentioned Gabe Vincent. 10.5 points on Prize Picks. I just played it over. Use the code FIVE. Remember what Vincent did the last time he actually got to play against the Sixers. He didn't get to play against him last time. Spo didn't use him. All right, let's go to you here, Greg. The Sixers, I looked at the standings today. If you could just freeze the standings right now, just freeze them. This is exactly what you want if you're the Heat, I think. The Heat in the 1, Milwaukee and Philly in the 2 and the 3. Other way, actually. Philly and Milwaukee. The 4, Chicago and Boston. Right now, the Nets are in the 8, but you assume they win a play-in game, maybe against the 7 seed, and so you don't even have to deal with them in the first round. That's the bracket, right? Like, this is what you want. I mean, if you look at the standings, Alejandro pulling them up, my eyes are not good enough for that, but thank you. They're still not good enough for that. That's okay. You can go back to the other place. There you go. But basically, this is exactly what you want, right, Greg? Back to Greg.
Yeah, no, for sure. And there's a couple things that I think is important as we wind down the end of the season. Once we get around the 25 games left, 20 games left mark, just pay attention to the loss column. Like, don't look as much at the win column here. And so they are 3 games up on Milwaukee in the loss column, obviously 2 up on Philadelphia. So this is the type of game tonight where they can create real separation. When you come down the stretch with as many home games as they have a real opportunity to secure that seed. And then I agree with you. I think Brooklyn could catapult Toronto and get into the 7. And then for my selfish reasons, I hope Charlotte were to pick off whoever's going for 8 so I could cover those games. But this is about as perfect as it could be. But I still think 2, 3, 4, and 5 are subject to flip. So it's tough to hone in yet.
They are, but you could secure the tiebreaker against the Sixers tonight. You don't have the tiebreaker against the Bucks, but you don't necessarily not have it either. Okay, so I mean that one is still in play. As I go to Ricky here, we know they have the tiebreaker of the Nets. That's not going to be a problem at this stage. And then the Celtics have the tiebreaker over them, but they would have to keep charging at the pace that they've been playing of late, and Miami would have to slip for them to catch them. I mean, Brady made the point earlier, Ricky, that like this is the game that everybody plays because if you can put this one in your pocket, you may be able to rest some players down the stretch of the season because your seed might be more secure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my position has been for quite some time now. I think you got a gun for that number 1 seed. That is the best possible opportunity for Miami because at this point, if we've looked at Miami's last 5 or 6 years, they've determined their destiny just about every season. And at this point, if you get the 1 seed, you're guaranteed home court advantage through at least the first 3 rounds. Can't control what's going on at West, but at the very least, if you can assure that you can get at least 4 home games in every round, I think it puts Miami in a much better position than they were before. I'm not saying this because the Heat fans in the arena are magically going to will them to a win or anything, but it's better to be at home. And as we've learned and as we've been joking about all day today, maybe it has an impact on certain players that can't seem to get away from the nightlife in Miami. So it helps. It helps. And at this point, the South Beach flu might actually be something that Stephen A. Smith might actually be right about in terms of ESPN's takes on the Heat. So we'll see.
Ricky, Harding couldn't even handle Hollywood last night. Forget South Beach. Hollywood got him, okay? He was, according to our spy, Brady Hawk. I don't know how you got in there. According to our spy, Brady Hawk, that's where he was until 4, 5, 6 in the morning. Jonathan, to the point of getting up as high as you can, the ABC is sticking us with the Lakers again tonight, but the Warriors play in that game, so I would anticipate the Warriors win. But even so, the Warriors are only a game and a half up on the Heat. So it's not just if you're looking ahead here and saying, okay, you're trying to win a championship, you're going to have to beat the team on the other side. You could potentially go into the postseason with the only team that's going to have home court against you being the Phoenix Suns. And we know with Chris Paul's health that there's no guarantee that they get to the finals, right? So, I mean, this is potentially very fortuitous for Miami.
Yeah, we are in a very ideal situation right now. Like you mentioned, we have tiebreakers on a bunch of the teams. And on top of that, on the West Coast, we're like pretty close to where they would be as far as the 2 seed. Phoenix is trying to have a little bit of a space. They've had phenomenal win streaks this season. They've done really good. But their health, questioning how far they can go deep is Chris Paul going to be healthy every season? Is he going to miss a couple of games for a series? And is that going to tip it for some other team's favor? This is in a really interesting position because I don't think any of us, thought that we could go into the finals with home court advantage, but we might be able to take home court advantage not all the way through the Eastern Conference, but even into the NBA Finals. So that'll put us in a really good position. And the way this team plays at home, we've seen certain players just click so much better in front of that home crowd, especially Herro playing off that home energy. That'll be just a really good position for the Heat to be in.
I'm glad you mentioned Tyler because, Brady, I think this is a Tyler game. We've talked about it. Philadelphia's guards, the way that they defend, they create those opportunities for Tyler. He is on a roll. You look at since he came out of the All-Star break and he got healthy, all of his percentages across the board are significantly up. And now he may get another backcourt partner off the bench in Victor Oladipo, who could take even more pressure off him. And obviously we're looking at that for Monday. To you, what has been the biggest thing for Tyler here over the past week and a half, 2 weeks?
I want to say, for one, they could put Thibault on him, which could change some things. But I do think from their eyes that they're going to probably put him on one of the movement shooters like Duncan just because he can go through screens like that, and that's kind of his strength. So I kind of expect that. I would probably expect them to possibly go to Herro Duncan lineups a bit more just because of that reason. But the thing that stuck out to me with Tyler is just his pick-and-roll presence. Like, overall, just his decision-making in it, his pace within it. We always talk about like his lack of a lob pass because it was always rushed. It never was really there. He's playing at the speed of his roller. He's bouncing off of his own defender where he's not just sprinting to the rim. He's waiting for his defender. He's bouncing off him. He's just much better in that spot. Like, we know what he can do in the mid-range when he has that opportunity. He can rise over the top of guys. But when you can dissect the pick and roll like the way he's been and getting Bam these lobs and hitting Deadman in pockets, that's the difference maker. And that's the difference when you look at putting a Kyle off the ball, putting a Jimmy off the ball. When in a playoff game, you could say we can run all of our offense through Tyler to create. That's just big time running down the stretch of the season.
All right, a couple of housekeeping items here, a few housekeeping items. One, subscribe to Off the Floor. We're putting exclusive content on there if you want to find out how. We're all putting it on our Twitter accounts, so that's stuff that you don't even get on this channel. You don't get on the podcast. We do have a podcast coming up tonight. We've got Pace and Space at halftime. I mentioned prizepicks.com. Use the code 5, F-I-V-E. Let's get to it tonight. Let's get to the picks. Let's go around. Big game feel here in the arena. It's already loud. I mean, not loud, but, well, it's loud because they're moving tables around. But, I mean, it already feels like a playoff game type atmosphere. I feel like the Heat understand what's at stake tonight. We'll start with Jonathan this time and go around. Do they win?
Yes, I do think they win. I think them not having Harden is a big part of it. Maxey has been playing phenomenally, playing kind of that off Harden role, and he's been thriving in that. Now, I think without having Harden there, he's not going to have as good of a game that he normally has in that recent stretch. I think he goes a little bit quieter. I think we see a lot of trapping of Joel Embiid as soon as he touches that ball, a lot of shading off of other players to kind of just force the ball into other places and make them go deep into the shot clock. So I do think Miami gets the win. I think this is an Eric Spoelstra match class, and I do think we get it done.
Greg, I want to go to you on this. The Maxey thing kind of sticks with people. It's one of those, Kentucky guard they could have had. They took one. They didn't take Booker. They didn't take Maxey. Do you think that they would have – I just want to clear this up one way or the other. I don't know if we can, but do you think that Maxey would have been included in a trade for Lowry?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. I think that was the chip that they were going to have to include in that deal no matter what. And I know that they liked Maxey's game, but do you all know who Tyrese Maxey's agent is?
Yeah, well, that's the problem. But that's why I'm asking you. Was that the only reason? Because, I mean, from a skill set perspective, or was it that they had Tyler already?
I think it was more that, and they legitimately liked Precious and thought that they could, I wanted Desmond Bain. I have found the tweets to prove it.
Yeah, I know you did.
But Precious was the pick, obviously. But I don't think Maxey was actually going to be the pick regardless. So as much as we'd like to maybe be upset about that, I don't think it was ever going to be a reality.
All right, tonight, I know what you're going to say about tonight. I mean, tonight.
Oh, you know it. I mean, culture over process all day. I will say this, though. I mean, the Maxey's been great. The Sixers are one of the best teams at taking care of the ball. They've been playing really well. This is a game where Miami has to show up. I'm glad that all the guys are playing because, to me, if they win tonight and get another game between them and Philly, they're starting to get into that stretch where you can let Jimmy take a break or you can let PJ get a game off and things like that. And here's the other beautiful thing, Heat fans. If they lose tonight, they're still in the 1 seed.
They are, but they're real close to the 4. I mean, that's the thing. And again, then we start to talk about Boston, which is in the 5, and they have the tiebreaker over Miami, and they still got to go up to Boston later this season. So this is a significant game, Ricky, to me. We've talked about big games throughout the year, but you start to get to the point where games have multiple consequences, right? I mean, they affect you and they affect the team that's chasing you. They affect tiebreakers. They affect seeding. They affect psyche. They affect a whole bunch. To me, this is the biggest game of the year so far. Okay, right? Tonight is the biggest game of the year so far. Would you agree with that?
I think it's almost there. It's really nipping at the heels of the biggest game of the season. I think that's going to come in, 2 to 3 weeks because I have a feeling that something's going to shake out in the standings where like a boring midweek Heat game might actually determine the final seeding of the conference, as crazy as that might sound. But as far as tonight, I have the Sixers winning. I think they still have enough, even though Harden is out tonight. They still got Maxey. Tobias Harris has been having a bit of a rough go at it Harden. With Harden there, this is an opportunity for him to kind of shake off a little bit of the cobwebs a little bit. I think they have enough. And on top of all that, you're at the arena, Ethan. So,
you know what? They've been really good with me here lately. I just got to say that. Maybe it's Alex, but they lately they have been. I always want to point out I've been in 3 championship locker rooms and I've got the champagne over those clothes to prove it. So I'm not an ultimate jinx. I'm just more.
Those guys aren't here anymore, though.
Well, that's true. Well, UD is. So that's the common thread. UD renounced the Dolphins this week too. So I feel like he's gonna have even better luck. Brady, what do you think?
Yeah, I think we were talking about the Philly matchups from before. This is the first time Bam's playing Philly this season. And I think we're talking about the Gabe versus Maxey matchup could be interesting. I just want to see Bam versus Embiid. I think Spo is 100%, as Jonathan was saying before. They're especially without Harden. Like, this is why I like the Philly matchup in a postseason before they made the Harden move, because they can double Embiid on that block, make him other guys hit shots on swings, and their rotations have been so crisp as of late that you can rely on that. I think they're going to use Jimmy, obviously, as a roamer, PJ in that way. But I want to see Bam and Joel Embiid go one-on-one a bit. I want to see how that shakes out and kind of see him take over late if this is a close one.
To me, you mentioned the guy, Ricky. To me, the wild card tonight is Tobias. He's been awful lately. He got off to a really good start to the season. It has seemed like he's had trouble fitting with Harden. I will say this. If Tobias goes over 20, the Sixers will win. If he doesn't, or he's low efficiency, the Heat will win. I think, to me, you're looking. They need one additional scorer, because I do think Miami's going to make it hard on Embiid. He will get his points, but they're going to make it hard on Embiid. I want to see what Tobias does tonight. He has had good games historically against Miami in certain situations, but he has been. Look at the percentages. He's been bad lately. I think that swings it one way or the other. I like Miami in a close game that was closer than it should be. I feel like they get up and then they struggle again down the stretch. I think we're going to have some of those same conversations. I do hear that Jimmy's good, though. I hear from a health perspective, he's fine. We'll see where he is from a psyche perspective. All right, check out Pace and Space at halftime. Check out Post Up 5R as soon as the game ends. 5 on the floor. We are doing a Saturday night 5 on the floor tonight. We're starting to crank some of those up. We'll also have a podcast tomorrow, as it's Depot Day on Monday. So we'll do an all Depot Day tomorrow on the podcast. Check out prizepicks.com. Use the code 5. This game Bay Brew, markbrownpa.com. And subscribe to Off the Floor, because we're going to give you stuff there you're not going to get anywhere else. Okay? Have a good night, everybody.
All right, let's continue our pregame show here with the latest podcast done by our friends on 5 on the Floor. Thank you to all of you that are still here with us. More than 200 people watching this live right now on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. Let's go ahead and enjoy a little bit of this podcast. Today's press conferences before the game were not that long, so we're going to go ahead and jump straight into that podcast reviewing the win, that great win at Brooklyn in the second night of the back-to-back.
Welcome to the latest episode of 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app. We're on Podbean, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. We're also on Dash Radio on their Nothing But Net channel. It's every single weeknight at 7 p.m. Also, check out 5 Reasons YouTube. As we speak, Post Up 5R is going on. That's after every game, before Floor, an hour before every game. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, because we've got a ton of streams on a ton of Miami sports going on all day long. Also, check out 5reasonsports.com. No paywall, unlike
He was the pick and roll ball handler a lot of.
got some business from us from Broward. So they service Broward also. They also use just locally made products, American made. They're family owned and operated. So reach out to Danny at 305-484-4429, 305-484-4429, or check out the Instagram page. You can find out how to reach them. Then it's All Pro Construction Builders. Mention 5 Reasons Sports. You'll not only get a free estimate, you'll also get 10% off. And now, tonight's episode.
Down the Biscayne. Yeah. 5 on the floor. Ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing. You can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing. Got it all banned. Y'all seen the block. Stop with one hand. And Pat we trust. It's about have the guts. We're here to bring the heat. Y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
All right, Ethan Skolnick back on 5 on the Floor. Here's tonight's floor plan. We've got a full house tonight. We've got the entire crew, the 4 of us. You can also follow on our new premium service. You can check that out through my Twitter page over at 5 Reasons Sports and find out about Off the Floor. We've got a bunch. We have up to 40 subscriptions over there already, and we're providing exclusive content. I've got Alex Toledo. You can follow him at Tropical Blanket. Brady Hawk. You can follow Brady Hawk 305. Greg Sylvander, who looks like death right now, but it's his flu game. You can follow him at Greg Sylvander. The Miami Heat win tonight. They rebound from a 1-point loss
against the Milwaukee Bucks. They beat the Brooklyn Nets after a slow start in the return of Kevin Durant. They do it tonight without Jimmy Butler, without Kyle Lowry, without PJ Tucker. So without 3 starters, they do it because the 2 players who are going to lead them into the future, I think that's our consensus, unless there's some kind of a trade, but we don't think so. They closed this thing. They made the plays that needed to be made when it was getting away. Bam Adebayo and Tyler Herro. I'm going to start here with you, Brady, and because for this reason, because I think we've talked a lot about the different places you can go at the end of games. And tonight, Kyle Lowry was not an option. Jimmy Butler was not an option, okay? Tyler Herro made a play, drew 2, got the ball to Bam. Bam attacked and basically finished. What did you like about the end of the game? And then we'll get to some of the stuff that we didn't like so much.
Yeah, there were moments late where it felt like they were retracting the things that we just talked about yesterday, because it almost looked like a copy and pasted version. They had a 12-point lead. It came back down. It's late game offense again. What are they going to run? Bam came back in because he had that foul to play with. And I kept saying to myself, like, just go to Bam. And they did. But the thing was, they kept running those post splits where Strus is cutting, Herro's cutting. And it felt like they were kind of getting in the way, where it's like, clear out and let Bam go to work. That next play, they ended up getting to Tyler, as you mentioned. Bam ended up getting the mismatch. I feel like they were trying to get away from it because KD was guarding him at the length. They got KD off of him. They got 2 down there, and he had that tough finish over Goran. Like, that's what you want to see. Like, this isn't what you want to see because you're without Jimmy Butler and Kyle Lowry, as you just mentioned. This is what you want to see when Jimmy Butler and Kyle Lowry are on the floor. This is just a perfect matchup for Bam. Like, there's a couple reasons. It's not just because it's that building and it's against the Nets. Like, the way they guard the perimeter just allows him, like, pocket pass, just walking down the lane every other time. It just really fits him. So just talking about late, Bam is a big element, but Tyler's also a big element because, as you mentioned, he was the pick and roll ball handler a lot of times. Like, I don't think the scoring popped late because of it, but he was making passes that only certain players make in this league. And I feel like that speaks volume, that he had a couple lobs late, but just his decision-making in those spots, like those decisions he was making in the pick and roll late to get to the ball to Bam were decisions he just wasn't making last season.
Not even last night. And that's kind of what I want to get to. I mean, eight assists and 1 turnover. But Alex, that's what sticks out to me. And that's why I think this is a game we're going to remember. That there are certain games over the past 3 years that we've remembered as kind of turning point games. I think we can look at what happened against Milwaukee as a turning point game in the sense of how things fall apart late. But to be able to have to go through it the next night and without Jimmy, and for Tyler to have to be the one making so many of those decisions, to me, the significance of this is, again, these are 2 of your standard bearers going into the future. They have to be able to click together when it counts. I just feel this was a really meaningful game, particularly with the way the 2 of them closed it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think, honestly, it was almost a continuation from what they showed last night versus the Bucks. And the difference is, like you mentioned there, was the decision-making from Tyler, right? Like, and you guys said it. I was right about to say it when Leif said it here in our chat. 8 assists, 1 turnover. Like, sometimes the numbers are the numbers. That compared to, what was it last night? 5 assists, 5 turnovers. Like, that tells you the story right there. Even though he went 8 of 19, obviously he was going to have to take a lot more shots tonight. You're fine with it. He got a lot of good shots. He wasn't forcing a lot of really tough ones or anything like that, and got going as a playmaker there. I've always felt really, really good about the Tyler Bam connection, the fact that you can run pick and roll through them, but it's less about that and more about empowering both of them individually, whether it's with each other in the same play or not. And I just couldn't agree with everything Brady was saying. Like, it was just like Bam, when you have Drummond on him, if you have LaMarcus Aldridge on him, go at them every time. Stop waiting on the damn cuts and go at them. Like, there was a couple possessions there towards the end of the game where I'm like, is this really going to be a do-over from last night? Because he was passing it to Gabe and just kind of hoping Gabe would bail him out. And I think it happened on 2 possessions in a row there. And I just couldn't believe it. I'm like, I understand KD is not a bad defender. Bam has struggled with that type of length before, but like, you can't just wait on Gabe the whole time, man. Like, you got to go at KD, even if it's a little bit uncomfortable, because he is bothered by length, and it's not like you could just post him up. But Bam and Tyler, like, both of them looked awesome tonight. Even with Tyler going 8 of 19, like I said, he did everything you wanted him to. And I think both of them, before those last couple of turnovers last night, had really good fourth quarters against the Bucks. So I just hope that they keep going to them too a little bit more in the fourth and not having to just hope for Jimmy to do stuff. Like, I think that the last 2 games should push Bo in that direction.
The Nets broadcast, it made me flinch because they said, well, the Heat was up 4 with 16 seconds left yesterday and things went awry, and you saw how that ended. I think what we're seeing is, in a weird way, that teams are ultimately going to say, all right, Bam Adebayo and Tyler Herro beat us. And to me, I honestly think that that's to the Heat's advantage. I think that that teams are going to hone in on what Jimmy wants to do. He's the primary facilitator in so many ways, and he's the big name. But ultimately, the way that teams are guarding Bam, it's almost ridiculous to think how he's left open at times, how he's left to move around in space at times. It's just bizarre. So if that's really what's going to happen, and then obviously Tyler is just taking his game to another level, I think it bodes well for the Heat if it ends up being Bam and Tyler that need to carry that load. It's just figuring out the balance of how having Jimmy and Kyle on the court with those guys and everybody being maximized, how that, works itself out.
Well, later on, we're going to talk specifically about this matchup because I do think there's a good chance the Heat are going to see the Nets in the first round in some combination, whether it's a 1-8 or a 2-7. And I do want to get into how Kyrie and Simmons potentially could change that equation because the Nets have a lot of interesting guards, but none of them are really playable in certain situations. Like, I mean, you're always afraid of the Patty Mills explosion against the Heat, and it happened. I thought Goran was rusty tonight. Like, he started fast and then kind of fell off a cliff as the game went on. Bruce Brown's a nice player. I mean, they have material there, but everybody's exploitable. And particularly their interior players are exploitable. I don't care what the reputations are for Drummond and Aldridge. They're food to Bam at this stage of their respective careers. I mean, Aldridge can't move his feet. Drummond, that one throwaway from Drummond, I mean, he's not a starting caliber center player at this stage. And we'll talk more about that later. But I think what you got to, Greg, is important because I think Spoelstra does see the formula now. And I think this was important that Jimmy missed this game. And we kind of hinted at this on Before Floor a little bit tonight. The reins needed to be turned over to somebody else for a night. And now it needs to be, okay, how do you reintegrate Jimmy and Kyle into this? And here's where Jimmy and Kyle come in. They need to be the ones to settle it. Okay. Because that's the thing that Gabe and as well as Max played tonight, and we'll talk about it. They can't do that. Kyle and Jimmy can do that, but Jimmy has to accept that that's the role. Okay. That's the role, that he's a relief option down there, that they can hunt a mismatch for him or on a cut, or maybe he can get to the line. But this idea of Jimmy out, okay, is not a way to close games when you have two guys that you can see are capable of closing it and seem to have the intelligence now, the two of them, the experience to be able to do that. I think this is an instructive game. I hope, for the sake of the Heat, that Spoelstra, but also Butler, watched this tonight and took something from it, because this is the direction we've said all year this team needs to go. It doesn't mean Jimmy's not valuable. It doesn't mean in a lot of ways he's still not their most important player. But that end of the game stretch where they get away from everything that they do for the entire game because they decide to play ISO ball with Jimmy, or he does, we've seen it doesn't work. It doesn't work on a consistent basis. They need to get away from it. All right, when we come back, I want to get into a couple of the other stars tonight. I thought Eric Spoelstra was one of them, by the way. And we'll get to a couple of the others, particularly the guy he inserted in the starting lineup in the second half. And I almost think he did that. I think that was planned. I have a hunch on this one. All right. But before we do, I want to tell you about another great sponsor, the 5 Reasons Sports Network. We talk about this one all the time here on the network, and it's Therapist Preferred. Use the code 5RSN, code 5RSN. You get 25% off all of your premium CBD. That's 25% off the tincture, the sports cream, the gummies, whether it's the strawberry lemonade, the green apple, 25% off. They'll get it to you within a week. Okay. It's great stuff. It helps you sleep. It helps you recover, and you're not going to fail a drug test with it. People ask me that all the time. It's CBD. It's not the other stuff. Okay. So don't worry about it. Therapistpreferred.com. Use the code 5RSN, and use that same code for GetSalice.com. It's actually called Salice. Comes in these little packets and it replaces your electrolytes. So if you're a distance runner, if you're a tennis player, this stuff is perfect for you. It'll help you keep you going longer. Go to GetSalice.com, use the code 5RSN, and you'll get 10% off, and you won't have to pound as much Gatorade because this will replenish your electrolytes in a healthy way. So therapistpreferred.com, GetSalice.com, and use the code for both 5RSN. All right. Eric Spoelstra decided to do the too big thing tonight. He came out with Yurtseven and Bam, and it looked to me, and I'll have you guys challenge me on this, that this was done in large part to keep Bam from getting into early foul trouble. And in that sense, it paid off because he had 5 fouls, but none in the first half. So he was able to play through the first half, but Yurt really didn't accomplish anything, which it was not particularly surprising in this matchup. And so I don't necessarily think, I don't know if anybody will ask Eric about it tonight. I don't think he'd be honest about it. I bet he always had it in his back pocket to go to Caleb Martin as a starter in the second half. I think that was intentional. I don't think it was just because of game flow. I just think that's the right player to play tonight. And I think he just played Yurt basically to keep Bam out of foul trouble. Does anybody disagree with me about that?
No, not at all. I think you're onto something, but I also think that there's an element of it where he wanted to try it and see if they got off to a good start with it, and then he could essentially stick with it. So I guess where I'm going is that if they had played better to start the game, I don't necessarily know had he shifted at halftime, but I think that you think that they likely were going to make that shift no matter what at halftime. Is that kind of where you're leaning?
Yeah.
I can see the reasons why.
He puts it in his back pocket. We know that. But I think it would have had to have gone really well in the first half, which it didn't. It went better when you got away from the two bigs. I guess I'll ask Alex and Brady this question here. I mean, we've talked about the two big situation, and if PJ Tucker's starting, you don't even have to worry about it. Where do you guys stand on it?
I mean, look, if you're gonna do it, and I've said this over and over, and I'm not trying to be hard on you. If you're gonna do it, go with Dedmon. Like, I just think, and when me and Brady were talking about this right before the show began, like, I just think Yurt was put in a bad spot tonight, and I'm not trying to, talk down on Spo or anything like that. I just completely disagreed with the decision to start him, and it had less to do with the two big stuff, and more to do with Yurt specifically versus, Kevin Durant. And they had two other shooters out there with Goran and Seth Curry. Seth Curry being an elite shooter. Like, I just think he was in a position where he was gonna get abused from the start after not having played much the past couple of weeks. Like, guys who could easily find open looks for him. Brady was talking about it pre-show how he was just kind of getting overplaying on the handoff, getting dusted up by there. I noticed how instead of trying to look for cutters, he would always try to look for the handoff receiver, and would kind of had tunnel vision just with that guy. And that's the point of the handoff is not only to get it to the guy, it's to get it to whoever's open. Like, if the receiver isn't there at 3-point line getting an opening, find the cutters, at least look for the cutters. And it was little things like that I'm sure had to do with him not playing and getting consistent minutes in a while. But I just think Yurt was not put in a good position from the start. I would have liked to see him just coming off the bench and maybe playing when Durant wasn't on the floor. He only ended up with 6 minutes tonight for a reason. Like, I think he's a decent player, but he's not ready to be a starter yet, not even plug and play. Like, I think, and I said this on our off the floor window content, I think Haywood Highsmith was giving you better minutes tonight. He finished at 14. So I think Spo agrees with me too.
Brady, are we going to get away from it completely?
I will say that I thought Yurtseven, I said before the game that I thought he should start, and the reason was because you can't run Dedmon and Yurtseven together. Like, I would understand more in Alex's direction if they want to go the Dedmon route with Bam. I could see that more often, but it was just that they had such limited bench guys that they kind of had to start Yurt in many ways. But when you're starting Yurt and Bam and you have no creation, like, you're starting two shooters with two bigs. Like, that's where I kind of lean away from your point, Ethan. Like, maybe you could push back a little bit, that I think it looked so bad that I don't know if it was planned. Like, that was like a moment where you saw what happened, where every offensive possession was handoff against a team that guards the handoffs really
Brady,
well.
would you have felt better if he had started Tyler ahead of Strus then? If you're gonna go with the two big, I mean that lineup's completely unconventional. But if at least you would have had some creation, right?
Even Caleb, honestly, like I feel like Caleb can at least give you something more off the attack than Strus or Duncan can. Like if you're gonna do it, that just felt like a hole there. But it was also in the second half, like they could not fall behind again. They couldn't take that chance again, even if it was rolling. To your point, because Caleb was just giving such great minutes that they had to. But I just don't think we see it much more often unless there's a game. Like we have to put in perspective, they're without 3 starters tonight. Like they had to just do whatever on the fly. I don't think it's looked at in the future. I know people were looking, Bam and Yurtseven started together. Bam played really well. I don't think Bam did anything when Yurtseven was on the floor. Like it just crowds things for him that when you saw those 4 out type of lineups, that's when Bam can excel.
Bam and shooters. We talked about it before the game. That was the direction they needed to go. All right. I want to get to the unsung heroes tonight. Before we do, one more sponsor, CPT of South Florida. They've been providing small and medium businesses with the technology they need for decades. They specialize in cloud hosts and phone systems and managed IT. If you own a small or medium business, you're looking to save money on your monthly phone and internet costs, give TJ a call right now. He's been helping South Florida businesses save thousands per month. He can do the same for you with a cloud phone system. You can work from anywhere on any device. It's cpt-florida.com, cpt-florida.com, 954-966-2766, 954-966-2766. Again, the website is cpt-florida.com. They still got this promotion going, 25% off cloud phone service, including free phones and the first 2 months of service free. Just mention 5 reasons. Again, check it out, cpt-florida.com. We've talked about Caleb Martin a little. He cannot come out of the playoff rotation. I'm sorry.
No way.
All right. He raises the level of everybody he plays with, but also he has had his biggest games against what are considered quality Eastern Conference teams, Milwaukee, Brooklyn. Look at it. He has played well against those teams. He plays hurt. He comes back when he's out, and it just looks like his teammates get a jolt from him. I know the whole Red Bull thing and all that, which Eric Reed's not allowed to say on the air because promotion and all the rest of that. But look, it's true. I mean, they like play. Even, one thing I always do is I check the Instagram pages of the players after the games. Whenever Caleb makes a play, they all feature it. It's just like this guy gives them life or wings or whatever you want to say. And I just don't think he can come out of playoff rotation. But also, I want to get to 2 other players. Max, you could see it happening late in the Chicago game where he got some reps and he seemed to get some rhythm, because Brady and I were talking at that game that like it had been about a month since he looked comfortable, and now he looks comfortable again. I thought defensively he's played much better over the past couple of games. But also I want to mention Duncan, because I know he didn't shoot the ball well tonight, but 7 assists for Duncan Robinson, and a lot of those were he reacted correctly to the overplay consistently tonight. They don't win this game without at least 2 of those 3 guys playing well, and all 3 of them did.
Yeah, I think the first thing to say is you mentioned Caleb being a lock for the rotation. I believe that to be true, but specifically against this Brooklyn team, like he is playing against this team. And there's a couple of reasons. The main one is that Cam Thomas can go off on you. Like he has that type of potential to score the basketball. Patty Mills, as we saw, can hit you. Those 2 being the backup, bench guys, backcourt guys, Caleb Martin be able to put on those 2 guys is pretty ideal to enter with Tyler Herro. Like that feels ideal from that sense. Max Strus tonight, I think, was big. But tying the 2 together, there was a play specifically when Duncan drove late. He drew like 2 or 3 people in. He threw a cross-court skip pass to Max in the corner. He hit that 3. Like that stuff is pretty insane to me. Like to talk about Duncan Robinson on a night where he has 0 points. Like who would have thought we'd be saying that Duncan Robinson was impactful on a night he had 0 points? But there was even plays where he was making passes. The guys weren't making the shots. And you're like, man, that was a nice pass. Like he could have had double-digit assists. That's how much he was kind of passing this thing around. But just specifically, I think the player of the game is Caleb. Like I feel like just kind of bouncing around here. Saying before this game he was questionable with Achilles soreness. He ends up playing the most minutes on the team at 37, 8 of 11 from the field. You mentioned like he steps up in big games, but he also steps up in big moments. Like you remember when we think about the best plays of the season, most people think about that dunk in Milwaukee. I think a play from tonight that sticks out is that late in the shot clock, he just pulled up on an isolation 3 out of nowhere. Like, he steps up in these moments that it's just hard to look him off when talking about a playoff rotation.
It's going to be hard to look him off when Victor Oladipo comes back on Monday. And, now that's been reported everywhere. Our Greg Sylvander had it first. Let's just be clear on that. Woj and Shams have come in after the fact. But Monday against Houston, I can't see him coming out of the rotation, guys. Like, he's not a situational player anymore.
He's their backup 4. He's not coming out.
It's going to be fascinating to see how Spoelstra does this. Like, this is the deepest. Like, he has the most ammunition and can go in so many different directions. You mentioned Duncan Robinson. I do want to say I took him over 2.5 threes made on Prize Picks. Use the code 5 to double your initial deposit. He did not cash in that for me. So that was unfortunate.
Cashed in for me the day before, though. I will say that.
Yeah, it seems like it's an every other day thing with him. But I think it's going to be super interesting to see how they deploy Depot, because not only is Caleb playing so good, but like Gabe, even in games where he's not scoring well. I mean, I know that there's been some hiccups here or there, but he's still playing well enough to where I don't know that you could just shelve him all of a sudden. So I think that it's going to be one of the more fascinating things to watch Spoelstra integrate Oladipo and really find the moments when your team needs that jolt, or like just how to balance, when to insert him into the mix.
Yeah. And Alex, Duncan, you've talked about his value a lot, but this was something we talked about at the beginning of the year, how he would react to the overplay. I thought it was as good as he's been with it, honestly, even without getting the threes tonight.
Oh yeah, I'm with you right away. And honestly, like, this is a game where you're of course you're missing a ton of players. Like Brady said, 3 starters, 2 of your best players. Duncan was going to play a lot, but on a night where he shot 0 of 3, he played 31 minutes. And that's not something that's come consistently for Duncan. And, I think it's a good game for him, man. I think it's a great game. Like, I agree that it's his best passing game. And I think he's gotten better and better with this stuff over the past couple of seasons. And tonight he just really had it going. Like, you could tell he was looking to make those passes because he was expecting the overplays. And he was kind of like getting enthusiastic with wanting to make a play with the ball. And I absolutely love that, because not that it's there every time, but it's really just a read and reacting with Duncan, because the 3 threes he did take were the right ones, and he could have made any one of them, but because it was any time that you would have the big dropping back, he would take it. And any time that they would send the second guy, he was making that pass. And the speed that which he does it at is just what's gotten better. Like, he just does it with so much, like, he does it as it's this play that they've been running for 3 years, and he knows exactly what the reactions are, exactly what the right read is to make. And now he's gotten to this level where he's firing darts into the paint with no hesitation and getting it in there. Like that, the cross corner skip pass that Brady mentioned earlier, that one was beautiful too. I just love what Duncan is doing. And like, it's just one of those games. He plays like this, and it shows you, like, he's really making things easier on everybody else. And then you have, like, even with Max playing as well as he did, Caleb playing as well as they did, both of those guys hitting threes for you, Duncan was still looking good out there. I just, their depth it's hard to overplay, because I think we talk about Gabe and Caleb, like, you cannot take them out of the rotation. And I think we're all still kind of there. So who comes out then? Is it Max? Like, when this team was healthy, Max wasn't even getting that many minutes, like, just not that long ago. So I am interested to see how they manage Depot there, but between like Caleb, Gabe, and even Max with like the game he had tonight, it's really hard to do it. I just think it's probably going to be Max if I had to guess.
Well, we're going to talk about all that in more depth probably on Sunday as we get ready for Depot's return. And of course, the Heat play the Sixers on Saturday. I'm going to give the victory cigar. I think Brady hit it tonight from City Cigar Lounge. I think we give it to Caleb Martin, just because he was a difference, inserting him in the starting lineup in the second half. The reality is, Bam and Herro, again, that is, I think, what we're going to remember from this game, but that's what we're expecting them to become. Caleb Martin was not expected to do this year and to give them this kind of impact in these kind of games. Of course, check out City Cigar Lounge down the street from FTX Arena, more than 350 different types of premium liquor, more than 50 different types of cigars, clean, comfortable environment. It's a great place to watch a game. They got TVs everywhere. So check them out, City Cigar Lounge. And again, Caleb Martin gets our victory cigar tonight. Closing here, you each got 24 seconds. I'm counting it down, okay? Simmons and Kyrie back for the playoffs. Let's just assume, all right? With what you saw tonight from the Nets, how many games did they take off the Heat in a 7-game series? Brady?
I'll say Heat in 6 right now. But I will say that when I watched this game, Bam Adebayo was obviously the factor against the Nets. But Jimmy Butler would be huge against his team. Like that, it would be the matchup. He can create mismatches on smaller guys that we saw. This is a team that relies on perimeter defense. He can get to the basket. We saw the free throw. They tied a first half season high of free throw attempts. Jimmy, you know what he's going to do there. Like this is a matchup where Jimmy Butler can take over. And it doesn't matter if I know people were saying Ben Simmons can guard him. Like, let's not do that. Like Jimmy Butler played roughly in the last one, but Jimmy Butler can dissect this type of team. I think 6 is the number I'd go.
Are we talking about Ben Simmons, the guy who had dirty pants all over the floor against Atlanta? That guy? Heat in 5. I mean, I think the more relevant question, I want to shift this to Ethan quickly before we go to Alex. Duncan Robinson's at 712 threes. The franchise record is 806 by Tim Hardaway. He's 95 away from breaking it. Will Duncan Robinson hit 95 more threes in a Miami Heat uniform? Yes or no?
Oh boy. I mean, there's 18 games left in this season. He's not getting it this year. So you're asking me basically if he's going to be here next season.
Oof. You just think about it. And now Alex,
Alex, you got 24 seconds.
Heat in 6. I think like the Nets will be a really cool, really fun matchup. And the Simmons thing, like if the Nets were to dedicate themselves to playing small and not playing a big with Simmons, like they could actually give the Heat some trouble there. I agree with Brady. Everything he said there as far as the matchups, like Bam, we've already seen how good he is against the Nets time after time. Doesn't matter what the situation is. And with Jimmy, like Brady said, when it comes to like Goran, Patty Mills, Seth Curry, that's a lot of guys right there. Kyrie Irving, who he can try to get the switched on to him, but I could see it being a tough series because of the size that Simmons and KD provide, and the Heat having tough with switching teams. I don't think they have enough, man. Like I think the Harden thing was their high ceiling move, and now it's going to be on KD and Kyrie to carry versus a Heat team that's going to have help and elite defenders sent at them every single time. I don't think that they're going to be able to do it. I think Simmons is going to be wide open a lot. KD and Kyrie are going to take a lot of tough shots. Heat in 6.
I appreciate Alex going over the time limit because that gave me more time to think. I'm going to say he does it, Greg, because I think if he's traded before the deadline next year. Everybody have a good night. Check out our sponsors, All Pro Construction Builders, GetsTheLease.com, TherapistPreferred.com, CPT-Florida.com, PrizePicks.com, City Cigar Lounge. We back Sixers game Saturday night. Alex and I will be there. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Regional Sports Network.
So you heard there, Ethan Skolnick and Alex Toledo are tonight at the arena. Miami Heat facing the Philadelphia 76ers. These are the standings and how they look right now. Let me put it right away on your screen so you guys can see it. This is how the East looks like right now. So a win for the Miami Heat would put them 3 games ahead of the Philadelphia 76ers and 3.5 over the Milwaukee Bucks and Chicago Bulls. Everything very, 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 very close here on the Eastern Conference. The Raptors that are in the 7th place are only 7 games and a half and only 4 games and a half from the 4th place in the Eastern Conference. Of course, we're going to have all that coverage here on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us here on the channel. If you haven't done so, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you haven't done so either, please give it a thumbs up to our video. That way you can help us besides sending super chats money like our friend Ryan. Thank you, Ryan, for those for that contribution. Besides doing that, you can also help us to keep growing our channel by giving it a thumbs up, a like, and writing your comments here on each one of our shows here on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. Remember the halftime Pace and Spaces on our Twitter feeds. So make sure you check our Twitter or Twitter in general, but our guys on Twitter, so you know where to go on during halftime. And then right after the game's over, post-up show with Royal Shepherd hosting the post-game analysis after this Miami Heat Philadelphia 76ers game tonight here at FTX Arena. Have a good night, enjoy the game, and we will see you later here on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. Bye-bye.